What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to Fuel Friday. I'm so excited. On Fuel Friday, we have me and my good friend, Dr. Harrison. We break down a topic in 15 minutes or less that we think will help you build your happiest, healthiest life. I
That's
have the
right.
have the timer officially going. Dr. Harrison,
15 minutes.
what's the topic today?
Okay, the topic I'm going to be hitting you with 101 questions. This is a field that I don't immerse myself much in it because I work with chronic illness. But this is a big part of your world. So I'm looking forward to learning about how you approach this. So the question is, what are macronutrients? There's a few parts to this question. What are macronutrients? How to make them work for you, why they are important, and how to get started. Maybe, and this is going to be a full 15. So, first off, what are macronutrients? Right
Yeah.
out of the gates.
So macros, the way I like to think about it, so to understand macros, most people have heard of calories before, right? Calories being this unit of measurement for energy, and we get that from the foods we eat and the drinks we consume or the beverages we consume, right? So it's literal energy. And a lot of people have heard of I have to eat, if I eat too many calories, I'll gain weight. And if I eat too few calories, I'll lose weight. If I eat just the right amount, you'll maintain your weight. But the calories are only one piece to the puzzle because it just controls how much we're eating. Macros comes in because it breaks down those calories into different segments, right? So you technically have four macros. You have your protein, your carbs, your fats, and alcohol is technically a macronutrient as well. And the reason why they're in those different categories is because they have different functions in your body and different caloric value. So your proteins and your carbs have 4 calories per gram, your fats have 9 calories per gram, and your alcohol has 7 grams per 7 grams per calorie or 7 calories per gram. And so each one of those things, as you consume them, do different things, right? So I love giving the example of like weight loss, and people are like, well, I gotta eat 1,500 calories a day to be in a caloric deficit to lose weight. I'm like, sweet, you can eat 1,500 calories worth of nothing but Oreos. Do you really think that's going to help you get to where you want to be? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, that's where the macros come in because you would realize that almost all of your macros, if you ate nothing but cookies, would be carbs and fats, right? And so now we got to start manipulating what we're eating for, I'm sure, your future question of like, well, how does this fit for you and your goals?
That's exactly right. I love that. And I never thought of alcohol as a category, but these are where problems, sneak between the cracks if we're not looking at all the pieces, because
Yeah.
alcohol is like a food group now in most of the world. So the next one, how do you put them into place? So you advise all the time with your clients. How do you start? How do you what does it look like for someone? Real life example. Someone's coming to you and they're like, because always most of the goal is I want to lose weight.
Mhm.
Um, what macros? The $1 million question. What macros do I need to follow?
Yeah. And
And
this is what's fun. So you can go onto MyFitnessPal's an app. Bodybuilding.com has a tracker. There's ifitfitsyourmacros.com. And you can go to all three of those sites and plug in your weight, your height, your activity level, all this stuff, and it'll spit out some numbers for you. But all of those numbers end up being different. And so then you're like, what? Then you go to the Google and Google's telling you, like, so that's kind of where the question and the confusion comes in. And where a lot of people again say, well, macros don't work for me, or it's too confusing, or too this or too that. Well, the issue is that it really is unique per person. There's so much that goes into it. So when we talk about starting for people,
yeah,
everybody wants,
starting point.
yeah,
Yeah,
where do I just start? And everybody wants the meal plan right away. The PDF, just eat these things, but it doesn't work that. If it was that easy, like we'd all do it. So what we have people do is they track their food first. And this is what makes us different than other programs because most programs are just like eat chicken and broccoli for every single meal, which again isn't going to work because you don't plan on doing that for like the next 10 years, right?
right.
We have them track their food first. And what's really interesting is when most people track their food, regardless of what their goal is, whether they're trying to build muscle, build strength, or burn fat or lose weight, I can almost guarantee that over 90% of people, what ends up happening is their calories are off of what they should be doing when they start to make these changes. And the macros are off as far as usually protein goes. They're usually over consuming carbs and or fats and under consuming protein is what we typically see, regardless of how healthy people are eating. I hear that all the time. I eat really healthy. I don't eat fast foods. I just eat whole foods. I'm like, yeah, but if you're still overeating in carbs and fats, it's not going to be congruent with your goals. So we have somebody track for an entire week, weekdays and weekends included. And what's really interesting is for most people, they're under eating. They're not eating enough food, is what I typically end up seeing. And we end up having to say, man, you're trying to lose weight and you're only eating 1,100 calories a day. Like, that's not like we got to like fuel your body, right? So, for most people, depending on where they're at, and again, it's hard to say per person, but for most people, we normally try not to change their calories too much. All we change is what they're eating. And for a lot of people, if they're eating only 20 grams of protein a day, we know that's too low. And we say if we keep your calories the same and get you to eat more protein, then what happens to the carbs and fats? Well, you got to eat less of them, right? And so naturally, people start eating more of the good stuff, the stuff that's going to help your hormones, help build that lean muscle tissue, help with your metabolism, and they eat less of the crap, the donuts or whatever it is they're eating. So if you just start eating more of the good stuff and less of the bad stuff, then naturally your body starts moving in the right direction, right? And that's the important piece for people in the beginning is just to move in the right direction. Most
So
people
so
try.
you're yeah, so you see like the common theme is people want to start out of the gates with the exact metric in every way, and well, let's say they get tangled up in the details and rather than kind of a starting point and then
Mhm.
modifying it from there.
Yeah, well, this is what we see, okay? And this is what's so interesting, and people don't think about this with nutrition. If somebody were to come to me, let's say you came to me and said, I want to run a marathon. And I say, sweet, when was the last time you ran? You're like, oh, I haven't ran in years. Like I'm starting from nothing. And I say, sweet, well, mind over matter. Let's just go run the marathon right now. You'd look at me like I'm crazy. You're like, shouldn't we start with a mile and like then build up to a 5K and then build up to a 10K and eventually get to the marathon? I'm like, yes, the marathon is the goal. The starting place is let's just get the mile done and get that, and then we'll kind of progress from there. Same thing with nutrition. People come to me and say, I want to lose weight. And sure, maybe you burn 2,000 calories a day and we got to eat 1,800 or 17 or whatever it is, right? But people want to go and just run the marathon. They want to cut their calories to an extreme, way lower than they need. They want to cut out all the bad food, all the junk food, all the soda, all the this, all of that, only eat a whole food, only do chicken and broccoli, start working out 6 days a week. And it's like their body just isn't ready for that, right? It's too extreme, it's too fast, it's not a lifestyle. And what ends up happening is they lose weight really fast in a week or two, and it's the wrong kind of weight. They lose water weight, they lose inflammation, they lose muscle mass, they lose food weight because they're starving themselves. And then worst case scenario, their metabolism starts to slow down because they're starving themselves, and they're more prone when they do actually eat to storing fat,
So
right?
so do you see energy drops when people do this?
100%. Well, and that's where people always say, well, after a few weeks, they get unmotivated. Oh, that's the word that they use is I'm not motivated to wake up and
Mm.
my alarm go off. I'm like, you're not unmotivated. You don't have energy because you're not fueling yourself, right? I bet you would be tired eating 1,000 calories a day or 1,100, or maybe you're eating enough calories, but it's all carbs and fats. You're not getting enough protein, whatever it is. Like you're not fueling yourself the right way. I bet you are tired. I bet you are
Yeah.
unmotivated. I bet all
Our
these other
bodies talk to us if we're willing to listen, right?
100%. And so that's the interesting thing is most people come to us and we say, man, you actually need to eat more. They're like, what? No, I'm trying to lose weight. No way. I'm like, but when we give them more food to eat and it's the right types of food, especially protein is a big thing. And we can talk about that in a second if we need, but they actually start saying, I have more energy. That's the first thing that starts happening. They're working out, they're putting more effort in their days, but they have more energy at work. They have more energy for their workouts, have more energy to play with their kids, right? I'm like, yeah, because what did we just say in the beginning? Calories are what? They're energy. So if
Mhm.
we're giving your body more energy and it's coming from things that aren't going to promote gaining a bunch of fat and actually building muscle and hormone production and all these things, then but you do have more energy,
Yeah,
right?
sustained energy, right? A fuel source that is sustained
Yeah.
rather than a spike and a crash. Where do people start? What is a starting point? What is an instruction of a starting point? I know everybody. Oh,
That's
sorry.
what we were talking about. We were just talking about that. I guess I didn't answer your first question because that was your question of where do people start. So I would track your food for 7 days and figure out what your average is because most people realize that when they're on their diet, they eat pretty strict, but then the weekends come around and they're over consuming food and alcohol and all those things on the weekend. So you track everything you eat for 7 days. Okay. You find your average, and the first goal with calories is just consistency. Okay. You shouldn't be overly full and you shouldn't be hungry. Like right when it's time to eat again, you should start getting hungry, right? Like that's the kind of
Mm.
feeling we want. And so that way your body is hopefully at somewhere around maintenance calories, right? Where it feels good. It's it can build muscle, it can burn fat, it can have the hormone production, all the things we want, to where we just feel content with our calories and just consistency there. And then we're going to increase protein. Okay. I always say, and again, it changes per person. It's so hard to give just one number, but I always say that I've never recommended less than 100 grams of protein before for a person. So it's just an easy number to say, man, if you're track your food and you realize you're eating less than 100 grams of protein a day, then you probably need to eat more protein, right? Now, most people end up eating more than that. I always say, if you're trying to lose weight, what is the ultimate healthiest goal weight for you? Right. So if you're 200 pounds and your ultimate goal weight's to be 140, usually you'll be somewhere around 140 grams of protein. Is probably what's best for you. Okay. Now, again, it's different for everybody, right? I can't give those
Yeah.
statements. We like to see what's going on with each person. But again, most people, it's 100 grams of protein or more, right? So that's a good starting place for people is just, can I get to 100? And then we can work from there.
So if we want to break it down in the steps, if it's possible, the first
Yep.
step is track your 7 days. Just know what the heck's going on.
Mhm.
Try to determine the average of your macronutrients. Is that correct?
Of the calories. I always
Of
do the
calories.
average of the
Okay.
calories.
Yeah,
Yep.
calories. And then you said make sure that you're sustaining yourself. You're not feeling famished before,
Correct.
right?
So, yeah, and what ends up happening is people, when you're trying to do this yourself, they always think they can do more than what other people can do,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so they'll say, "Oh, well, my average is 1600, but I got to lose weight, so I'm gonna actually do 1400." Or they'll change the numbers and don't do that because what happens is you'll do 1600 and you'll feel good Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Become the week and you'll realize, "Oh, I'm so hungry." Because food, when we consume it, isn't just one day at a time. Things roll over, just like sleep. I could
Mhm,
miss sleep for one night and I'll feel fine the next day. But if you consistently do that, eventually it catches up to you. Same thing with calories,
mm.
right? So it's important to be consistent so you can see over a long enough time horizon if these calories actually are fueling you the right way.
Okay, so once you have your average, because I keep coming back to the steps, once you have your average of what it looks like on paper of calories, then you increase protein to try to feel initially sustained between meals.
Yeah,
Is that
100%. So usually those two things will happen at the same time. Once you have your calorie
okay?
average, we're trying to be consistent with that. We'll actually increase that protein at the same time. And protein is actually very filling. So for a lot of
Mm.
people, it's like very satiating, it's very filling. They realize how hard it is to hit that protein number. So usually those two things kind of work at the same time because most people, again, how many donuts can you freaking eat at one sitting? You probably eat
Yeah, I see it with my patients that when we're starting to lean into protein for all sorts of reasons, um, they just don't have an appetite
Mhm.
for a bunch of other stuff,
Yeah,
crap or whatever it is. So then you're filling in the gap here or there, and it sustains, like you say, blood sugar regulation and everything else.
Mhm.
So then once they do that, because there's a lot of again a lot of apps and stuff like that online, and great ways like MyFitnessPal to be able to calculate where they're at when they're weighing or they can scan codes and stuff like that. But
Yep,
once they do that, so that's kind of like a baseline, a minimum of this protein. What about when people are looking at all these formulas, certain macros based off body weight and goals?
yep.
But would that be like second step,
I
second
so
depth?
again, it depends the person, but I can say this, every single person who's worked with me that's going off of my fitness pal and their macros, I have changed them every single time. There's never been a person who's come to me and I'm like, oh, my fitness pal hit this dead on. This is where I want you
Mm,
to start. It's way too low, way too high, way too this, way too that. Because again, a lot of people are trying to go off these metrics of, oh, this is my weight and this is my activity and this is this and this
okay.
and that. But again, what you just said was so powerful is that your body's going to tell you what it needs if you're just willing to listen. And that's what we do is let's get you feeling great and where you need to be and make adjustments based off of that, right? Because
Based
my
off how
fitness
you're feeling, and then you start tweaking the macros, and that's what you're doing with your clients, tweaking things accordingly, hold the line, follow up, tweak them
100%.
accordingly. Is
And
that what you
so,
see?
yes. And so yes, that is 100% what I'm saying. And I think everybody's looking for this one size fits all, this one solution. Two females, same height, same weight, same body fat percentage, going to my fitness pal and same activity level will spit out the same calories and macro goals because they're the same in everything. But I would probably do something different between the two, depending on where they're at, what their goals are, all these other different metrics, right? And how their body is responding to what we're doing. One of them might need more protein, the other person might need a little less protein, depending on how their body's responding to those
Mhm.
things. And
What
again, go ahead.
sorry, keep going.
Well, I was going to say, and what you do for that starting point, right? If somebody's 200 pounds, the macros and calories you're going to be eating when you're 200 pounds versus when you hit your goal weight of 140 are different as well.
And change.
Changes as you go
Yeah,
through the
yeah,
process.
yeah.
Then you don't have a goal to lose weight anymore. You actually want to maintain body recomposition or build muscle or at a time.
There we
That
are.
to drive my point home. Okay. What you do when you're in your early 20s versus your late 60s probably makes a difference as well, right? People have noticed that what they did to lose weight before kids versus after kids, oh man, my body's not working the same. Premenopause, postmenopause, right? Things sometimes change as your body changes and goes through life. And a lot of times we're trying to do what we did in high school and it's just not working the same, right?
Mhm.
So I think to the point, because I don't, sometimes it gets confusing for people. Track your food, find where you're normal, and just increase that protein to 100 grams of protein. That's where you start.
Let's
And
start.
I
Yeah.
can promise you that if you do that and you weren't getting enough protein before, your body will start to move in the right direction.
And then once you do that, then you get somebody that's going to help you navigate through the details. But you got to start first, right? Just like everything in life. I
Just
love
have
it, man. I love it. I learned something. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
of course, man. This is what I'm here for. You guys, I really appreciate everybody being here. Please don't forget to share the episode. Macros is a huge part of getting people on track with their nutrition and things like that. So I appreciate you sharing, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.